Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today I'm going to be having a chat with Andrew Love, and he's got involved with a lot of very interesting things. So let's have a quick chat. Hey Andrew.
Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Oh, that's an interesting background.
Yeah, well, I've got many. I've got many. It's however you choose. I mean, one of my favourites is uh, this one. So
Are
that
you,
says a
are
lot
you in the
about me.
crab?
Yeah, I'm a triplet. I'm the middle one.
Are you really a triplet?
Yeah. So yeah, that's me in the back. So that's my parents. My mum died when I was 13. So
Oh goodness.
uh, yeah. So
Where is
yeah.
that?
That's in Rugby, outside. I think it's Woolworths, and I think that's on the high street.
Woolworths, what's that?
Hey, listen, when I was a kid, mate.
Who's the best shop?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good fun.
So, Ian,
Go on.
what, where are you placed in the industry?
So I started out as an ADI 2005
Yeah.
in Wales, and then I moved to Staffordshire, and then uh, ran my own school, and then I dropped out a little bit, just doing stuff in the evenings whilst I did what when it was really bad, 2010 or something.
That's right. Yeah.
Got a job to do, real job, and then the Olympic contract came up, which was ran by
Oh, right. Yeah,
Peak at
with
the time. Peak.
yeah, Peak. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I set that out as my goal then to just put that into Fleet, because I always wanted to do Fleet but never got into it, and then it just went from there. So then I went 100% Fleet.
That's right. Yeah.
But
Right. I
it's
wondered
just
where I'd heard your
strange, isn't it?
name.
Because it's almost switched. It used to be that Fleet was there was more money in Fleet, and then now
Yeah.
it's actually on the provisional license holder side, which is great, because that's where it needed to be actually. But now Fleet needs to catch up, I think.
Very definitely. I mean, this starts to end the conversation, isn't it?
Mm,
Although I have to say, and you might want me to come back to this.
mm.
I think with Fleet, most of the people are looking at the wrong stuff.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because really, does it really matter how they steer?
No, no,
Does
not
it
at all.
really matter?
Well,
Yeah.
it's that's an interesting point. That yeah. So because there's two like when we take on new fleet trainers, depending on the experience they've had, it tends to be you've got two camps. You've got the camp that are more interested in what I call higher GG matrix stuff, the culture and the person and their life and the stuff that's happening in the business that's making them drive the way they are. And there might be a few skills driver wise or journey planning or whatever. And then you have the other ones which are, oh well, no, you must do this and you must do it this way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you're gonna lose them.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, one of the things that's really important to me is, do you have to take that journey?
Well, absolutely. I think doing this, it proves to a lot of businesses that you don't need to
Yeah.
travel all the time.
Mm.
We're obsessed with traveling, aren't we? We're obsessed with using the
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
Um,
Very definitely. I uh, um, um, yeah. Understanding the the emotions behind people taking that journey, understanding their emotions helps, and helping them understand their emotions helps them recognize why they make driver choices.
absolutely, yeah. It's at the moment it's interesting because starting to see the business cultures come out, aren't we? Like you must be seen inside the office to actually be doing any work. Mm, not sure about that.
Mm,
There's
mm,
some businesses I
mm.
think genuinely think that if they're not in the office, they can't micromanage them. In which case, why are you even bothering? It's not.
That says more about the manager than it does about the employee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if
Yeah,
you live,
yeah,
if you work under that regime, then your driving's also going to reflect some of that, isn't it? Oh, I must be there by 9, otherwise I'm going to get absolutely, wiped off the
mm,
floor
mm,
and, you know,
mm,
belittled and all the rest
mm,
of it. Whereas
mm.
if you got someone that if you show up 10 minutes late, they actually go, "Oh, you're all right, mate. You're a bit late. Do you want to chat?" Or
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah,
different
yeah.
scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's understanding people. It really is understanding people. For me, why are they making that choice?
Mm,
Okay, I don't necessarily need to understand it, but what I need to do is explore it with them.
yeah, absolutely. Well, one of my
Mm,
mates that I read his LinkedIn profile. It said something which I thought was brilliant, and I think I'd never been able to express it in words. And he said that my job is to go do training in the car with people, coaching, whatever you want to call it, but to have a discovery. It's to discover what's happening, and it's for me to help them discover what's happening and experiment with it. It's interesting. Hmm.
yeah,
Bring
yeah,
it in the realms of coaching, then.
uh, yeah, yeah. I think that driver training today, and this is one of the questions, is I think driver training today, you will get more solutions by talking to people in in a small group.
Hmm.
I don't think more than 12 because people will hide, but maybe 8 to 12 and talk to them.
Mm.
No, listen to them,
Mm.
listen to them, and facilitate that conversation. Um, and the peer pressure that's brought on by that conversation, that's away from the driving, I think is far more powerful
Hmm.
than anything that can be delivered on road.
Not at the moment, but have you done? I think the answer is yeah. I want to check. Are you do 3-1 or 2-1 in car as well, or used to before COVID?
Hey, listen, I think 3-1 is fantastic. In fact, I've produced. I think 2-1 is good. Okay, uh, um, but I think 3-1 is even better.
Hmm.
But of course, because I'm on the audit register, the DVSA won't countenance 3-1, but that's because they've never seen it done well.
Yep. Yeah.
And anybody who's did it, so basically, the reason they don't want, because they don't believe you can learn in the back. Right? They just think you'll fall asleep, but that's because of the lazy trainer, not because of
Yeah.
the clients. And that's also because the way the trainer. So when I trained in 2004, so
Mm.
I've been an ADI for 16 years, and when I did my Part 3 training, it was in Peterborough, and we went round and round and round, and he said, "You haven't seen the fault." And so after the fourth time, I said, "Look, obviously I haven't seen the fault. Stop wasting my time and just tell me what it is." Yeah, instead of making yourself look right. Because and the way, well, I'm pleased that that happened, because the way I structure my training now, so when we do something like that, when um, I do a looking at the learner exercise,
Hmm.
and basically they watch me for a little while, and then what I do is I say, look, now I want you to watch, and I'm going to do, and it does a mirror or a signal. So all I want you to do is check that I'm doing the mirror and signals. I will make a mistake. I want you to tell me, just tell me, don't try and correct it, just tell me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, uh, and um, and there, that's success built training because they're being successful.
Yeah.
It's a teeny tiny chunk and they're going to be successful.
You can make people feel very stupid, can't you, on a training session? And it's very easy for a trainer to do that, but it completely destroys the trust between the trainer and the trainee.
Yeah. Well, now I think there are some trainers that want things to be hard so they look good.
Yeah. Which shouldn't be the
And then
objective, really.
no. And then there are a couple of trainers who make things easy so people can achieve. They're great trainers. Which category do you fall into?
Sometimes it's hard for some people. Sometimes it's hard to make it easy, isn't it? Because you have to change it up for them, as we should be doing, I think. But there's some individuals I can think, particularly on the provisional license holder side, where I think you have to work you certainly used to have to work quite hard, because maybe they had some form of dyslexia, dyspraxia, or they had you had to look at it a completely different angle for them to understand it. And I think maybe that was me learning rather than them.
Yeah. So, and for me now, so I'm back in the learners. I haven't done learners for about 7 or 8 years. But I'm back in the learners now, just to get some money. I've got another project that I can't really talk a lot about at the moment. But yesterday I was with a bloke, and he's quite an insular person. He's an IT guy, so I'm not saying anything. All right, I'm not labeling them or anything. But he works on figures and solutions and things like that, and he doesn't do well at taking his first decision. So he's not very good at justifying his first decision.
Is there like an over processing thing going on? Like, I'm thinking, making sure that they got it right.
That's right. Yeah. So yesterday, I just said, pull over, and we just chatted, and he just talked, and we discovered that he's quite concerned about making the wrong decision. So we found a way around that, and it just changed just like that. His drive just changed like that. And I went out with him this morning. Absolutely fantastic. But I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that driving him around. No. And the point I was going to make on this story was they will do it in their own time. And they will do it in spite of me being a trainer. And I think that's that's one of the points I would like to get over today, that people are successful in spite of me being the trainer. They will get it in their own time. I'm just there to facilitate the stuff.
Absolutely. It is useful to understand how somebody processes things, isn't it? Once you've managed to work that out together, it does accelerate things very much. Sometimes it's them discovering it as well.
Yeah. You can't force it, because like I was with somebody today, right? All you got to do is that, right? You can't tell them.
No.
They will discover it in their own time. That was another conversation. That's right. Yeah. So I had a conversation. Somebody said they got anger issues today. And I said, okay. So let's think about the anger. All right. How does that change the way you feel? How does that affect your decision making?
Mm-hmm.
And we had a conversation around that. And I said, so let's think about going forward. Next time you're angry, what strategies are you going to put in place?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'm going to have to think about that. Well, take as long as you like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I used to do speed awareness courses, and some of the guys, they used to get one right. I used to pose a question, all right, and he'd answer it. Sorry, he'd answer it. John, shut up! Shut up!
The whole point is that they think about it.
Yeah, and it was funny working with John because he'd throw stuff at me and everything. It was really funny. We were yeah. They used to love us working together. But often I'll pose a question, and I don't expect an answer for 1, 2, 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not the answer you get now. It's what's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really important. And I think this is what driver trainers are missing. And I think this is what L tests are missing.
It's about the test, isn't it? It
Yeah.
feels very much about the test. And even when DVSA say, oh, it's not about the test. Yeah, but it is about the test, isn't it? Because you talk about that when we do standards check as well. You say, what about test? Well, no, we're not talking about, we talk about driving safely.
Yeah, but the test is so important because the test is a pressured situation. And what a lot of people fail to do is, okay, let's think about when else might you be under pressure? When might it be that if you don't get it right, you've got quite severe consequences? Yeah. And so I just asked them, and they, oh, I might be going to a job interview. Oh, okay, let's explore that. How might that affect your drive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, so if you come out of that interview and they've told you, get out, yeah, what are you going to do? How are you going to react? What are you going to put in place to make sure you get back to your family?
It's really funny. Like when we watch, we don't really watch it, but we've watched Coronation Street, and there's a big to-do on there and a big argument. My other half looks at me and I go, don't say anything. Because we both say to each other, they shouldn't get into a car. But of course, the next thing you see them do is get into the car and speed it off. And it's we have that running joke when you're watching something. Is like they really just shouldn't be behind the wheel. But
and that's where driver training needs to be. It's not the. I've just got a Hyundai Kona, which is a level 2 car. Yeah. What I didn't realise when I bought it was if you set, I don't know if you've driven a Kona.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So if you set the auto regeneration,
on the steering wheel.
No, in the settings, there's an auto regeneration
on the adaptive
uses
cruise.
We've got the adaptive cruise as well, but there's auto regeneration that uses the cameras to brake for you in town traffic.
Okay.
You've still got to accelerate. So this is true 1 foot driving. It's got the steering control, so it helps you go around corners. It's got the emergency braking, all of these things. So this is a level 2 car. So I don't know if we'll ever get level 3. We'll get level 4 and level 5, but I don't think we'll get level 3. I don't think any insurance company is brave enough. No. But this is this car here will do lots for you. The challenge now, what do we do with these drivers? I don't have the auto regeneration on very often because I'm just traveling it's how do I use that? And adaptive cruise control is a really great example of this. So I don't want to use any brake or any gas at all. I want the car to do it. But in order for me to do that, I've got to be focusing on what's going ahead, so I can create the space for the car to do the rest of the work. Yeah.
I find I have to predict what the car's going to do before the car does it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's effectively what you're doing, isn't it? Because for the adaptive cruise control to work, it's got to have space. If it hasn't got space, it'll slow you down. Yeah, you can't just change lane because it doesn't like it. Whoa, yeah. So, so you've got to remember to indicate. The DVSA must have had something to do with that.
They must have done, yeah. Yeah. There's nothing there on the A14. There's nothing there. Yeah. I studied a signal.
So, it's about creating that space, isn't that? Everything or lots of things I do within training is about creating space. It's about creating time for you to be able to do stuff. So if I'm working with a learner, I want them to have time as they approach the roundabout. Yeah. So let's start just a bit further back. If I'm working with a PDI, I want them to have time to make sure it's safe, then look at the driver, give them the instruction, make sure they've got time to watch what they're doing, glance forward, make sure that then the driver's got time. Yeah. So it's all about creating the space. And this is exactly the same for the level 2 vehicles. Give it the space, give it the time to do what it should do. But that doesn't mean that you as a driver can relax. You've just got to be more focused on what you're doing, so and understand how that technology works.
Just touched on a really big nerve of mine, because space is one of the things I think we do. I personally do think we do very poorly in the industry. So if I give you an example, because the highway code says we should leave at least a 2-second gap, for some reason, I've been out with plenty of trainers that have said, oh, we're at 2-second gap, great. And in actual fact, when you actually start analysing their knowledge, and I go, okay, so why is it 2 seconds? And is that enough? And how much do we need? They don't really have the knowledge behind it and understand it, because it's a bare minimum. It scares me.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, is it? Because we're all driven on the skills for becoming a driver, and you can't blame driving instructors for this, because it's, even now, they call it a client-centered. It's a skills-based course, right? If that bloke in the back, if you don't meet what he understands, then you're out. Yeah. So it's still a skills-based thing. Yeah. But actually, the understanding of why we do that, yeah, the understanding of, well, why do we want to explore this information? Yeah. And I was sitting in the back of an audit, the new audit with, his name will come to me soon, John Carradine, right? Now, I trained the guy, and there was a really important point to explore. I can't remember what it was, but Dave just sat at the side of the road and explored it. John said, you were sitting at the road too long.
They want the wheels moving.
Yeah. But I just...
They're not interested in the training. It's about when the vehicle's moving, what risk assessment are you doing, and are you actually interacting with the driver?
Yeah.
It's strange.
The thing is, when we're doing that risk assessment, when we're sitting there talking, we're doing that risk assessment, because if we don't get it clear in their mind, they're going to be thinking of other things. So that's going to be a distraction from the task that you want them to achieve.
Absolutely.
So there'll be too many things that they're trying to take on. Hey, what do I know? I'm a new driving instructor.
It reminds me, not my last standards check, but the one before. I was the last 2 sessions I did with full license holders, and We were in the centre of Warrington, a 40-mile-an-hour road, and the driver that was sitting next to me, I'd already done a bit of work with him. He was doing about 30-ish, and I didn't really say anything to him because I could see the lights had just changed ahead, fair distance ahead, but he was trying to time it so that he arrived at the lights just as they changed. And at the end of the session, the examiner in the back said, "You should have got him up to 40 mile an hour on that road. Come on, you should be making progress." And I said to him, "How much progress do you want him to make?" And he just said, "You're going to be slowing down all the drivers behind." And I said, "You don't understand progress, do you?" I said, "Because we'd make more progress if we time the lights to arrive on green."
Yeah.
The examiner didn't understand it.
Yeah. Some of the stuff I've done has been with insurance companies, working with people who've been involved in really serious collisions. And I was doing a job down in Bude, and I'd seen this lady for about 3 or 4 sessions, and she'd been involved in a crash, and then almost immediately afterwards she'd been involved in another crash. And the second one was deemed to be her fault, but the reason it happened was because she was still having phobias of the last stuff. So she just didn't want to get in the car. So I went down, and the night before it was gales. It was really bad weather. In fact, I went down in the camper van because I was going to stop over in there, just save a hotel fee. So I booked. I just went into a hotel. And anyway, we were going around it's Cornwall, isn't it, Bude? We were going around those roads, and you know how tight they are. And there was a police van behind us. Now, she was doing 45, 50, but sometimes she slowed down, and that's because she was just, So this, and she said to me, this police van's behind me. I hope he don't pull us over." 10 minutes later, he pulled us over. He said, "What are you doing? Why are you being so slow?" I said, "This lady's been involved in a crash. I'm here to help her progress. You're not doing me any favors, mate, actually." And he said, "Well, I think you're going a bit slow." Okay. So we're going around country roads. Okay. Last night there were gales and there has been trees that have fallen. Are you saying you want me to go quicker around these roads? Oh, right. Okay, get on.
It's a weird perception, isn't it? That you have to be on it all the time.
Yeah, and the thing was, he didn't know what was happening in the car.
Should have started with the question.
So, and he didn't understand the gravity of what he'd just done. That he pulled this woman over. Okay, she's going through quite a traumatic time. We're trying to build the confidence, and I did quite a number of these coaching sessions, and so he got a flea in his ear. Yeah, so you're telling me to go fast after there's mid trees down? All right, okay.
It just made it worse, really.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And I remember I was working up in Scotland. I got this job because a mate of mine worked at Rosper, and he calls me the scary psychologist. And he said to me, he said, Rosper couldn't pay me what, and they said, "We got a client that there's only 2 commissioning engineers in Europe, and he's one of them, and he constantly gets points." So I said, "Okay. Right, I'll take it up. I'll go." So I named the price. It was accepted, and it was good. It was good as well. I just had a chat with him. I said, "Okay, so let's think. What happened with your last trainers?" He said he taught me limit points. You've been done for speeding. And this guy is teaching you to go around corners faster.
That's the objective, obviously.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. So, and what was really interesting with this was, we were on, I think it was a motorway, because there aren't many up there, are there? But there was this older gentleman in lane 2, and he pulled out into lane 3, and this guy got a bit, oh, what's he doing? Oh, right, okay. So I just started to have a chat with him. I said, do you know anybody who's that gentleman's age who drives? Oh yeah, me dad. Okay, so let's examine this. Has your dad ever experienced an aggressive car coming in? Oh yeah, he got really quite worried about it. All right, okay. So how did you feel when your dad told you about that story? Oh, it's really cross, really angry. Okay, what was really? Because that driver should have been more impatient. All right, okay. How do you think that bloke felt about you? Good ching. Yeah. Thank you very much. Did the job.
I have a theory. It's in my book actually, but I have a theory that most drivers will only ever see the situation from their own perspective, and I'm not sure whether that's us as an industry or whether there's something else going on, because there is a little bit of psychology around when we're in cars, we're very much more anonymous to other people.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever really see it from... We don't seem to have any empathy or see it from the other person's perspective for some reason. Very odd.
Because we're so insular in the car, our world is just that car. So we don't see, or we don't want to see what's going to happen, because when we're in that car, we've got a task to do, and that task needs completing. And it could be we don't like driving. I just want to get out. I just want to go. I just want to get there. It could be under pressure. So we don't want to see that. We just see that as an inconvenience. Yeah. And it's not when you're working with drivers, I think it's really important to be in the third party, to get them in the third party. Yeah. And talk to them. Well, has anybody ever done that to you? How did that make you feel? What did you feel about that driver? Is that the way you want to be seen? Yeah. And that's not telling them, is it? You can't do that because 35 in a 30 is wrong. That's not telling them.
It's not going to make any difference.
No. How and how do people want to be seen? Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I was working with a solicitor. This was really fun. And this guy, high flyer, turned up in his Maserati. Oh, great, good. Do you like the car? Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, okay. I'm not really here to see the car, but it's all right. I've never sat in a Maserati before. It's a bit too small for me, but and I don't like the leather seats quite like that. But it was white. I don't know, and blue. I don't know. 90 miles an hour on the slip road. Whoa, yeah, right. We were going through Milton Keynes. All right. He couldn't have hit the roundabouts any better, and he was at speed. The balance of the vehicle was absolute fantastic. All right. He'd been on some racing courses, right? You couldn't argue with his driving skills at all. Couldn't argue. Failed him. He's just too fast. Right? And I didn't talk to him about the speed. I just said, because he was his work was all involved in litigation of companies after incidents and things like that. So I just said to him, so, you know, I just talked to him about what he did, and he told me. I said, okay, so and then I said, does anybody ever sit with you in the car from the visit, any junior partners or anything? Oh, yeah, okay, okay. So let's think about the message that you're now giving. Okay. Now, you've obviously had some driving courses and stuff like that, and car control's brilliant. Now, that junior partner, he goes away, he's seen what you do, he hasn't got your skills, he crashes. Yeah. Right. Now, you are now the lawyer for the company who's been who's got the complaint. What are you going to do about that junior partner when he says, well, my boss showed me how to do it? Who are you going to go after? And he went, he didn't say a lot, but his last words were to me, thanks for this morning. It's been really interesting. And I've taken on board what you said about the junior employees. Yeah.
It's understanding the trigger, isn't it?
Yeah.
Understanding it from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I wrote, I felt it was really important to write a supplementary report on this. So I wrote back and said, look, this is his report. Ignore the driving report because the driving is really good. He was, except for his speed, but this is the issue. And Simon said to me, nobody's ever done that to me before. Like,
but
okay.
For me, that's the biggest, most important bit in the report is about the culture and the motivation behind what they're doing. But then I suppose it depends when the person reads it, what they'll gain from that. If they've already had it in the session, then does the report need to reflect that? It's interesting.
Well, no, the report wasn't for him. The report was to go back to the HR people because there was a real risk to that business from that person. Because if he'd had a crash, or if he'd been prosecuted, or even if he'd been involved in an incident, that could have taken that person out of the business. Now, he was a strategic person, and if he was on a case, they could well have lost. That was an issue to the business, a threat to the business. So so that had to go back and be dealt with by HR. Anyway, I went in about 18 months later to the HR director. And I didn't know it was the HR director at the time. And I went in and I said, hello, I'm Andrew Love. I'm here to do your driver assessment. Oh, you're Andrew Love. I better drive properly then.
You had a reputation.
Yeah. So, but it's finding the trigger, and you can't find the trigger by, you know, if I'd start going on about the speed, I did have to say, look, come on, it is 70 miles an hour. I'm a driver trainer. I can't allow this to happen. All right. And he did calm down a bit. But if I just gone on to that and latched onto that, I wouldn't have achieved that goal.
It's cause and effect, isn't it? And I think so often we go against the wrong thing. We're not actually, and often we think we're touching on the cause, but in fact, it's only just the surface. And that comes down to the analysis, doesn't it? How deep do you go into that analysis as to what's triggered it? Because often as well, we make assumptions of what the cause is as well, I think.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is really important, and whenever people are in training sessions with me, development sessions with me, listening is the key for me. And if you observe one of my sessions, you'll hear I repeat back. Now, that's a technique. That technique allows me two things. First of all, well, actually, it's three things. First of all, if I don't listen intently to what they're saying, all right, I'm formulating my next question. I know that's an issue with me because I'm not listening to what they're saying. So first of all, I want to listen to what they're saying. So I'll either paraphrase or I'll repeat back the last. So you're saying, okay, so yes, this is, oh, all right, this is more, I understand what you said. Secondly, it allows them to say, no, that's not what I meant. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm an absolute expert in only opening my mouth to change feet. And I'll particularly with wife, right? I'll have it all planned out in my mind, all right, and it'll sound great, but then when I open my mouth, all the words come out in the wrong order.
Yeah.
Right? I can't believe it. What have I just said? No, I didn't mean to say that. So, so it gives them the chance to actually qualify what they really meant. Yeah, and that's so important, because I don't want to listen to what they've said first of all. I want to understand what they mean. So I can only do that by really by digging deeper, really exploring that. And and it's really important to be non-judgmental, and you've got to really, it's really important to listen. And even if they say something you think, you've just got to remain calm, try not to show emotion. I mean, sometimes it's just, you can't help it, but sometimes you're just, and they'll look at you and they think, oh.
Even with a mask on.
Yeah, even with a mask on, yeah. And but I think it's really important then to give the opportunity to qualify what's happening. And the third bit, it allows me to formulate my question, because until I've got that, what really is, I can't work out I can't give that question. And sometimes, so what it'll be, so for example, it may be, so you said green light or something like that. Okay, so while I'm repeating that back, I'm formulating that next question. So first of all, it helps me understand what the issue really is. Then it helps me qualify that, and then I can pose the further question. Yeah. And so quite often I'll only use the 3-question rule, because if they haven't given me an answer, then I've either got to change tact or I've got to tell them. Yeah, because otherwise they'll be saying, well, he's not giving me the answer I want him to hear. Now, I don't want to hear an answer. I want to hear your answer. I don't want, and I think that's really vitally important, that we've got to remove all of the stuff that's going on in our brain. We can't be fuzzed by that. We really have got to focus on what the client is saying, and that is true client-centered approach, working with them to get to the answer.
Do you think currently we train instructors to do, I know you might do, but do you think as an industry we train drivers or driving instructors to do that?
No, and I can't train them fully to do that, because because if I train them to do that, that wouldn't meet the criteria for the test. I'm not saying that it wouldn't meet the criteria for the test. What I'm saying is, some of the people that are observing these tests or assessing these tests don't really fully understand. And I'm not saying that's all. I mean, if you Ian Robinson, he really gets it. He really understands it. Yeah. John Carradine, to a certain extent, really understands it. They really do focus that. But there are some others that don't. And I've sat in the back of audits. I've sat in the back of standards check. I've sat in the back of part threes, and they just don't understand. And my role when I'm working with with ADIs or PDIs is to get them through that test. And like I was saying 30 minutes ago, I don't expect an answer straight away. All I can do is sow the seed, and people will get there as long as the seed is sown and fertilized and nurtured, and they're given a reason to do that. And I think that's very important that people recognize. If I see an instant result, that's brilliant. Is that really going to follow through long term? What I'm really looking for, and I think this is one of the biggest things that we have with the Driver Training Institute, is a single intervention. And what we need to have is multiple interventions.
Absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
We don't want to have multiple interventions in a car. We want to have multiple interventions in a group session. Yeah, and Zoom is a great place to do it. If you get 4 or 5 people. So while I was at Smart Driving, I introduced their PDI surgeries. So we introduced their online training sessions. So for things like CCL, Q&A, and things like that. And that was a classroom of 12. And then for the 20 hours, we introduced 8 hours of PDI surgery. So that was where people were coming together, and the trainer, which was me, was to facilitate, just to expand and ask, and I don't know if coach is the right word, but develop what was going on. Yeah. And they learned far more from each other because we were facilitating that. Yeah. But I think some of the older trainers or the older style trainers want to take center stage. And it's not about being center stage.
There's a question about ego, isn't there? Is it about ego?
Yeah.
Or is it about the objective that we're trying to reach? Is it about training?
Yeah.
Is it about improvement within driving?
Yeah. And whose goal is it anyway?
It.
And I think this is a misconception from the companies, that so the people who are contracting you, they want to see they want to see something specific. Now you won't do that unless it's a long-term project. So I've worked with while I was at Rossborough, I had a great job at Rossborough. It was working with companies to reduce their road risk. So I was a occupational road risk auditor. And I went in to see companies and looked at their systems, but I also went in and delivered training sessions. Now, all the training workshops that I did were facilitative. They were easier to deliver than say. It was encouraging people. And I remember I was working with a rail company, and the rail companies, they really enjoyed the fact that they hadn't had any deaths on the railway for years and years and years until last year, when they had 2. But on the road, on the road stuff, people are speeding and that. And so we were talking about a company, welding company, and their specialist teams, and they have to travel all over the country. And they're saying, well, we can't do anything about the drive, the amount you drive. well, what can you control?
Mm.
So there's a crew of 6 people, a team leader and a driver. And I said, well, what usually happens on the way home? Well, the people in the back are either snoring and saying, come on, let's go.
Mm.
Okay. Or the team leader would sit in the back, right? Okay, so what can the team leader control? Because it's still his responsibility. What can he control? Well, I suppose he controlled who sits where. Oh, right. Okay. So how is that going to help? Yeah. Well, keep quiet. Okay. Think about the brakes. Think about all of this. So from going and saying, well, we can't do anything, now they've gone back with a plan that they can do. And I know that was implemented because they came back to me and said it was. Yeah. And you could see the difference in it. And it's the same of people try and use technology or use apps when really it's the people management that is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they look at the we'll get telematics in, we'll get video cameras. That's great. You have a
It'll
crash.
just show you what the people do. It won't change what they do.
Yeah. So they have a crash and you go to court. So you've had all this information for how long? And you've not done anything with it.
Yeah.
You might as well not add it. Yeah. And it's about working with the people to discover what they can do.
One of the things... Go on, sorry.
Sorry. No, carry on. No.
One of the things I find interesting with fleet work is, although drivers sometimes create their own problems, I don't think we always do enough with management, with the teams, because someone who works in the office is an equal partner, if you like, in the road safety mission than the people actually on the road driving. And people think it's all about the driver. The driver could be the best driver in the world, but if the team in the office is putting loads of pressure on them or whatever, then it can be just as detrimental, can't it?
Yeah, and it's often the best employees that get the most pressure. Yeah, because they're the ones that really do it. And I remember I was working for, I think it was a big plant hire company. I did and I talked to about 20 of their project managers. I think it was called Plant or something. I can't remember. And they were going, our health and safety is great. Oh, right. Okay. So what do you do when you get there then? How do you get there? And they say, oh, we don't need to worry about that. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what, I'll get this high-vis jacket and I'll get the hat because I've got a nice new hard hat, got some nice new hard shoes. All right. I've got all my kit and I'm going to come to your site. All right. And I'm going to, it's going to all be with me. All right. It's going to be with me, but I'm not going to put it on. I'm going to go because I don't want to get dirty. You won't be allowed in. Well, why not? I've got all the kit. And they said, well, you won't. You can't. You're not allowed to. Oh, well, I got the kit. Well, what'll happen? Oh, you'll get sent away. Oh, well, okay. So I'll come back tomorrow then. Yeah. But I don't want to get my kit dirty. Well, you won't work for us. Okay. So let's think about this then. If your guys are going to speed to work, all right, but they're only a little bit breaking the law, or they're only a little bit over the speed limit, or they're only a little bit tired, what's the difference? And all of a sudden, you could see this penny drop. And these guys were a lot cleverer than me. Yeah. I've only got a foundation degree, but these guys had MAs, PhDs, I don't know, DMS or I don't know, whatever it was, DFS or whatever. But they were, and all of a sudden, it just clicked. They are responsible for that safety. You put all of that effort, all of that time, all of that money to protect those workers on the site, but you're not worried about them getting there. But if they didn't get there, like that solicitor, like that lawyer, okay, they are a strategic part of that operation, and if they didn't get there, that would significantly impact your productivity. Oh, by the way, if you lose a day, whose bonus does that affect? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 20 of them, and you know, I did get asked back there. And
why do you think, you know, with road safety, do you think that the road bit, the transport bit, doesn't seem to get the same level of input as all the other stuff? Because I don't know about you, but a bit like you say, been to sites where you have to wear this, that, and the other. You look a lunatic going across the yard, but then when they go out on the road, it's what's that? I don't understand that.
Well, it's about what you can control and what you can't control, isn't it? So quite clearly, the corporate business believes that they can control everything on that site. Yeah, I think so. The first thing I do when I go into a business, if I'm on a fleet role or occupational road risk role, I don't want to talk to the ops director. I want to talk to the guys on the floor, but I want to talk to the FD. Okay. What's the issues? Where's the cost? Yeah. We look at the costs and see where, and that's the biggest play. You look at the money, you look at the costs. Yeah. Because if there's a high, if the residual value of the vehicle is quite low, because they're having lots of costs, there is something going on there. So you can save money there by just adding a few extra checks in. And if it's a big enough fleet, if you can employ one or two people and see a saving. Yeah. Now, once you start talking about that to the FD, all of a sudden he gets a buy-in. And this all comes from, I started in the meat industry. When I first left school, I was dyslexic. I'm dyslexic, and apparently I was thick. And when I left school, I went into a meat factory, a middle of meat packers at Crick. And for the first 12 weeks, I was just humping meat off a belt onto a table. But I made sure in those first 12 weeks, I learned every one of those cuts and things like that. And I just progressed. And I got onto the management training scheme, and I went through the packing, the abattoir, the distribution, the processing, the product development. I went all through that. And the one thing that I learned was, if you want to get results, you need to talk like the accountants. So you need to understand the figures, and that's really important. And it doesn't matter if you're a multinational company. If you're a driving instructor and you don't understand what your figures are, if you don't know how much it costs you to fill up, how many miles you're going to do, what the implications are of going, I live in Kettering, so going to Kettering, to Corby, to Northampton, to Wellingborough, or whatever. So you're planning your route, so you're reducing those costs. In any business, if you don't understand those costs, if you're not talking like an accountant, okay, you will not be as successful as you could be. Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I think that's where people miss the message on road safety, because they're not looking at the right figures. Yeah, we're driven by reducing the number of deaths, but actually we're not really. Okay, if we really want to make a difference, if you look at the financial implications of a crash to the NHS, to the ongoing services, okay, to the support services, the police, the trauma that the police and the fire service and the ambulance crews, if you look at all of that, you could claw back some of those costs by putting a few £100,000 into a road safety program. Yeah. And people are looking at the wrong stuff because they're not part of the bigger plan. They're not part of the NHS, not part of the police. They've got their little bit. What can we prove? Well, actually, it don't matter. If you're reducing the cost to those bigger organisations, then your part, you perhaps can't measure it quite as effectively, and it'll certainly take longer to measure. And I think that's really important for people to recognise that
there's an economic cost as well as to the emergency services and other costs as well. Yeah,
and it all starts with the people. And if you get the people, if you get the management of the people right, or the facilitation, trust them. Trust them. I mean, I'm John Farlam. I've got a lot of time for John. And he said to me, "What's your expectation of a learner?" Yeah. We did a little exercise where we went over to Buxton, and he was just being stupid. But he had a piece of paper, and he told us not to turn it over, and he said, every time you see something negative and you don't say something positive, you rip it up. Yeah. Okay. You put a tear in. And we had to find something good out of everything they did. And he made it really hard to find something good. Now, he did it for about 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes really. And then he asked us to turn the paper over. And it was a picture of the clown. And we were ripping it up. Yeah. So we were looking at the bad stuff. So every time, and we were just tearing up our learners. And I had a picture of a clown that was torn. Now, I kept that for about 10 years. And a mate of mine, Alan Millsop, he went and did the same course about 12 months later. And then we ended up on speed awareness courses together. And he had it in his little folder that he came, "Hey, what's that? Have you been to see John Farlam?" He said, "Yeah." And it was 5 or 6 years later. And I said, look at this. Now, both of us had taken that through, and both of us had changed or developed the way we worked with people from that specific exercise. And that's the sign of a great trainer, you know, where people have got stuff 5 or 6, 10 years later, that they remember and they hold on to that. And it doesn't have to be physical. It can be something that you've got in your mind. But it's so important that with road safety, the intervention that we do needs to be so that we can get people to work for the bigger goal. No, I'll have to get off my soapbox.
No, not at all. No, I'm loving it.
But that's the great thing about trainers and having the collaborative working. You know, we learn off everybody. And, you know, I've worked with some great people in our industry. And they learned from some great people. And they put their take on things, and as I put my take on things, and it's evolution, isn't it? And we just keep working at it, and it just keeps going and keeps growing and keeps going. But we must never forget the basics. You know, this coronavirus thing. Wear masks. Have an app. You know, my mum, who's as you can see, which one's my mum? Okay, that one. There, I can't see, but the lady, that's my mum. She was a theatre sister. You know, when we were kids, if she used to moan at us, "Wash your bloody hands." Well, she didn't swear. "Wash your hands," right? But she did hit us just like that. So every time, "Wash your hands," right? Before we had, "Wash your hands." Before we came in, "Wash your hands." "Mum, I've washed my hands." But 50 years later, what are they? What's the basic thing everybody's telling us about coronavirus?
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. My mum told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing changed.
So we've still got to remember the basics. We've still got to remember where we came from. And it's really important. And with coronavirus, you know, when you get in the car, as a business owner, ADIs, as a business owner, if you lose 14 days income, okay, because you have to self-isolate, that is detrimental to your business. So don't allow coronavirus into your car.
Absolutely.
And the way to do it is everybody's got to be really honest with each other. Yeah. Now with the masks, okay, I went into Tesco about 6 weeks ago and this bloke was in gloves. He had his mask on. Was he social distancing? No. Right? He thought he was safe. But he was still doing this. Yeah. Okay. Still wiping his face. Yeah. Now, if he has got coronavirus, okay, and he's wiping his hands, he's over his, and he's moving his mask and all of this, where is that contamination going to go? Everywhere. On the steering wheel. Yeah. On the indicator. Yeah. The way to deal with this, and it's the way to deal with everything, is don't allow it to happen in the first, or a lot of things with driving, don't allow it to happen in the first place. Don't let it get in the vehicle. Yeah. When you go on a building site, they won't let people on with alcohol. They won't let people on who haven't got the correct protective gear on correctly, because they're not going to let that incompetence in the first place. And we've got to take every road safety issue, we've got to do exactly the same thing. We've got to look at the important issues. We can't go away from the reasons behind it, and sometimes we might have to revisit it. Yeah. And we did have a pandemic about 100 years ago, and we've probably forgotten some of those. And that's really important, because this is a really strong message. We should never forget the reason why we put these things in place in the first place. Yeah. And the problem is that people move on. Yeah. So, people, there are new people that come on and they forget. Yeah. Or they don't understand. And it's really important.
Chance to speak, isn't it, about what your passions are, really. So
I don't think I'm very passionate.
Don't you?
I talk to my wife, and she's apparently I'm not.
I think so. Road safety. You obviously love coaching and getting the best out of people, and yeah.
And one of the things that's as I said, I started in the meat factory, and the only way that I got in, and I was doing this. So I'm 55. So I left school in 1981, and I went into the meat packers. By 1996. So when by the time I was 26, so that would have been 1991, I think, something like that. I was running the factory that made the beef burgers for McDonald's. The only way that I got there was listening to people. Now, at that time, I didn't realize it was coaching. Yeah. And I remember sitting in a meat factory one day. I was a QA manager. And there was something that went really badly wrong. And I said, look, let's have a look. What's happened? What could we do to change it? I said, I ain't interested in who's to blame. I want to learn something from it. Yeah. So I love making mistakes because I can learn. And it's that's the important thing. And with driver training, that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to facilitate. We have to get people to recognize that what does wrong feel like? What does getting it wrong feel like? Yeah. So when we can feel that coming in the future, what intervention are we going to do? And Ian Edwards calls it a pre-rehearsed strategy. Yeah. So we want to have those pre-rehearsed strategies in place. And you're not going to have those at the point of the event that happens. Yeah. So I had a conversation today. Somebody got in the car today, said, "Oh, I'm really tired." Oh, okay. Okay. So let's think about this. How does tiredness affect your driving? Yeah. So I was straight on it. Great. So how does tiredness? So were you out last night? Oh, no, I was playing it. Okay. How do you, when might you be tired? Oh, after a late shift. Okay. So would you have to go home? So if you've got to drive home, what would you do? And immediately started thinking, well, I suppose I could have a drink. I suppose I could, I suppose I could see if somebody else could get me home. Yeah. And so the conversation developed. Now that has been implanted in his mind. Now, that took 5 minutes. Yeah. But going back to that audit was in where somebody was saying, "Oh, you were there for too long," right? That's invaluable stuff. That stuff, if you don't do that, you deserve to fail your standards check.
I agree,
because
absolutely.
It's not about what we're doing now. It's what tools are we giving them to develop in the future. And the bigger picture with this, and I think that driving instructors as a whole don't understand this. This is about life choices. This is about helping people work out things of what they're going to go in the future. How are they going to make those choices in the future? How are they going to recognize when they're under pressure, take a step back, and have a strategy to deal with it? And that's not just safe driving, that's safe driving for life, all of life.
And that's the difference between learning the skill set, I can push the clutch down and change gear and brake and accelerate. Great, mate. Yeah, if you can do that, great. But like you say, if they're tired and they now think, "Oh, I remember Andrew, my driving instructor, we talked about this. Do you know what? I'm going to get someone else to drive." But if there's nothing, if that's not there, then what are they going to do?
That's right. Yeah. And you've not done your job as a driving instructor. I don't care what we call them, driver trainers, driver coaches, a name's a name. Yeah. It's what we do with that. And it's allowing them to come up.
You triggered a memory. So there was a girl I was training in Staffordshire. Nice girl. She was an Irish girl. And this one time I went to pick her up outside her house. And we had a little bit of a chat at the start. And I said, didn't you say you went out last night? Did you have a good time? Oh, yeah, I had a really good time. I said, were you drinking? Yeah, I had a few drinks. Yeah. I said, can you remember what you had? And then she was telling me, and she went, I've had this and I had that. Oh, and then I had this. And I was looking at my watch. I was going, right, this is about 10 o'clock in the morning. Said, have you calculated how many units you had? She just looked at me. She went, I never thought about it. She went, I'm probably over the limit, aren't I? I went, well, what do you think? You know what, though? I still did the lesson because I said to her, well, I don't think you should be driving because we've had that conversation. I said, but it doesn't mean say I can't drive. So I said, I'm not losing out. I'm not going to lose out this lesson. I said, because you're going to pay for it anyway. So I said, what about if I drove and then I can do a demo and we can have a chat about it? And she went, oh, I really like that idea. So we went and did that. And the next week when she got back in the car, she went, it's all right. I'm not pissed today. It's funny, isn't it? But they don't. For some reason, they don't think about it when they get into the car. There's not that thought process.
No, and that's about so that people don't separate it. And you talked about why is it different on the road? It's because it's quite a mundane task. It's we've just got to go and drive and do it. Yeah, we don't really think about what it is, the task that we're doing
in context.
That's right. Yeah. So in the building industry, the rail industry, the airline industry, people are not allowed anywhere near those industries if there's alcohol.
Mm.
Yeah. And I know we've chosen alcohol because of your story, but it's all sorts of things. I think one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have with driver training is about the psychological welfare of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think they term it the mental health issues. I'm not sure if I like that. I think we have to help people understand their own well-being, and I think that is going to be very important, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pressures, particularly now COVID's in, with redundancies, with financial pressures. So I think there will be a lot of psychological issues around that, and we as driver trainers, we have a great opportunity. We probably, whether it's fleet, whether it's speed awareness courses, whether it's working with companies to reduce occupational road risk, we've got a fantastic opportunity to help facilitate some real change with this. Yeah. And we will see. We're on the front line. We're on the front line of this, and we should be working with people to help them. When I say help, facilitate their understanding of themselves, their own well-being.
That's quite multifaceted, actually, isn't it? Because we've got the mentality, the mindset that people come into the vehicle, but you've also got the journey, like we talked about earlier on. Do I even need to be doing this journey? Is it just out of habit that I'm doing it because I commute to work, or do I actually need to do the journey? And then, so there's quite a lot of facets to that.
Yeah,
and like you say, about the financial, or it might not just be financial, but the pressures that we also have leading on from this, because I'm sure it's going to be challenging.
Oh yeah. I'm very definite. And company bosses, they're going to have an awful lot, and we need to target those people to help them. Now, one of the things that I think is that we're in a great position because of we're working with live, in a safety critical environment all the time, and we're having to find solutions there, and we can use that, excuse the pun, as a vehicle to help people make better decisions, better choices, develop pre-rehearsed strategies for other areas of business. And I think a lot of people, it's a driving instructor, but there's a lot of things that we can do because of our position, a lot of influence that we can put in place, and it'll just go under the radar, but it'll be sown in there for the way forward.
Well, coming back to the financial stuff, just thinking of the working from home aspect, there's a massive financial cost to having company vehicle, or doing the commute, or actually not doing the commute in very many ways, doing the commute in terms of the cost of that, but also the time element of that. But there is also a mental aspect, isn't there, of switching off between home and work as well.
Well, so one of the things, my office is one of the front bedrooms in our house. So behind, there's a green screen. This is a green screen, and behind that green screen is a wall, and behind that wall is my bedroom. So there is not a break there. So we have to find a way of switching that off. And one of my tactics is to close the door. But it does mean if I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with an idea, I can just come in here. Yeah. And the project that I've been working on through lockdown, I was in here at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Because sometimes I do my best work between 3 and 6, 3 and 8. Yeah. But of course, it means that sometimes I can't switch off. So one of the things I love doing is cycling. And we've got a camper van, so we're going away in the weekend. And we usually go away every other weekend, but obviously that's not quite happened. So we're trying to get a make up for it now. But I think it's very important that there are breaks and people recognise that. Yeah.
I think we've got some amazing people in the industry, and I like to get lots of different perspectives on things. And I think the idea of this platform is to make, I don't want to be patronising, but the average ADI that goes out and does lessons every single day to just think about things maybe slightly differently, because everyone's got a different perspective. And certainly when I was independent and doing my own thing, it sometimes can feel quite a lonely industry, but to have lots of people talking about the different aspects of the industry is quite useful. You know, so yeah.
Well, one thing I would say, I've been an ADI 16 years. Okay, the badge has taken me across the world. Yeah, people don't understand, and the great thing is, right? Okay, I've got the fleet badge, 120 quid. I've got audit, which is now what, 250 for 4 years. Yeah, and I've got the ADI badge, which is 300 quid. What's that? Less than £1,000, and I can work in any country in the world. Eh?
Not bad.
I said this to John Sheridan the other day.
Don't tell that to DVSA.
I said this to John Sheridan because I tried to renew my fleet badge. Get this. I tried to renew my fleet badge, right? So I did. So I didn't know you could do it online because they sent me the letter and it said you can't do it online, but it turns out you can. Yeah. All right. So I sent it, and of course it didn't get through. Right. So they sent me a letter saying
that you're off the register.
I'm off the register, but you've got 12 months to apply. Oh, if you want to email us, there's this email. So it was fleet@dsa.gsi.gov or whatever. So I emailed them. Oh, I tried ringing them first. That phone number didn't work. Right. Emailed them. That got bounced back. Right. So I rang. Fortunately, I had also emailed PADI@DVSA. Yeah. So I rang John Sheridan. I said, John, I'm trying to give you 120 quid here, all right? But I can't. I said, I want to give you 120 quid because the whole package, less than £1,000 for 4 years, that's 250 quid a year, allows me to work all across the world.
It seems to have, there's something missing in the communication department at DVSA somewhere, isn't there? And I know it must be an extremely hard task for them right now, as it has been for all of us, but
yeah, they have got a tricky job. I've got a lot of respect for a lot of people there, but sometimes they don't help themselves.
It's been amazing speaking to you. I've learned a lot from you.
Thank you.
I think that it's definitely worth staying in touch. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
I am available for hire.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Really enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe, and we've got plenty more videos to come. Take care.